So the headline of this article, it just came randomly across on my feed, and I wanted to cover this because it is somewhat of an occupation of mine where I do visit historic sites and museums and talk to experts. So this is from September 28th, 2017, but it's still wrong, so I don't really care when it was written. Wrong is wrong. Why Vikings were never the purebred master race white supremacists like to portray. That's a clickbaity article headline. So let's dive into this. The word Viking entered the modern English language in 1807 at a time of growing nationalism and empire building. In the decades that followed, enduring stereotypes about Vikings developed, such as wearing horned helmets and belonging to a society where only men wielded high status, which is wrong. The horned helmets were an American invention, if I'm not mistaken. During the 19th century, Vikings were praised as prototypes and ancestor figures for European colonists. Uh, they kind of were. The idea took root of Germanic master race, fed by crude scientific theories, nurtured by Nazi ideology in the 1930s. So we're just gonna link everything the Nazis did and use guilt by association to the Vikings. Great start to the article. Thumbs up. These theories have long been debunked. Okay. Although the notion of ethnic purity of the Vikings still seems to have popular appeal and is embraced by white supremacists. What the hell? And it's ironic. They quote the Vice. Wow. Oh, wow. If I didn't need a more of a reason. The same. Oh my god. I don't even want to list all the things that's wrong with Vice because they're so unethical nowadays that it started out as a good outlet, but that's your source. Okay. In contemporary culture, the word Viking is generally synonymous with Scandinavians because it is from the 9th to the 11th century. More precisely, if I'm going to correct you, from 1872 till 1066. So you should be probably more specific, but because it's a very narrow time when we're talking about the Vikings were thriving. We often hear terms such as Viking blood, Viking DNA, Viking ancestors. Yeah, well, what's wrong with that? But the medieval term meant something quite different to modern usage. Instead, it defined an activity going a Viking, akin to modern word of to pirate. Vikings were defined by their mobility, and this did not include the bulk of the Scandinavian population who stayed at home. That's just logical. Again, what does this have to do with your claim of ethnic purity by white supremacists? Like, what the hell? While the modern word Viking came to light in an era of nationalism in the 9th century when Vikings raided a range beyond boundaries of modern Europe and North America, which you exclude in this article, was different. The modern nation states of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden were still undergoing formation. Local family and identity were more prized than national allegiances. That is wrong because Norway was founded in 1872, so that's wrong. The terms were used to describe Vikings, contemporaries, Viking, Rus, Magi, Genti, Pagani, Pirati, tend to be non-ethnic. Okay. When a term akin to Danes, Danar is first used in English, it appears to be as a political label describing a mix of peoples. Yeah, but what kind of mix of peoples? Germans and Danish, Norwegian and Danish. It's still white people. Are we just gonna ignore history because you don't like the term that it's white people? The mobility of Vikings led to a fusion of cultures within their ranks, and their trade routes would extend from Canada to Afghanistan. A striking feature of the early Viking success was their ability to embrace and adapt a wide range of cultures, whether that be the Christian Irish in the west or the Muslims of the Abbasid Caliphate in the east. Um, the Viking again. You quote a book in which I can't read, so I can't use this as your evidence if I'm gonna have to buy a book to read your claim. So the culture it was mostly Norwegian. I mean the culture was Scandinavian. It's different from the rest of Europe and even Middle East. They mostly went there to buy tools. They didn't go there for to intermingle with culture and things like that. Sure, they might have picked something up, but wasn't integrated in the culture. So that's wrong. A blending of cultures, developments in archaeology in recent decades have highlighted how people and goods could move over wide distances in the early Middle Ages, and we haven't tended to think. In the 8th century, before the main period of Viking raiding began, the Baltic was a place where Scandinavians, Frisians, Slavs, and Arabic merchants were in frequent contact. It is too simplistic to think early Viking raids too as hit-and-run affairs with ships coming directly from Scandinavia and immediately rushing home again. Yeah, but if if you have looked into this, Norwegians know this. The Vikings were tradesmen, mostly. They did also conquer, like any other um, like other tribe or country, the Vikings did conquer things, countries, and people. Recent archaeological and textual work indicates that Vikings stopped off at numerous places during campaigns. This might be to rest, restock, gather tribute and ransoms, repair equipment, and gather intelligence. This allowed more sustained interaction with the different peoples. Alliances between Vikings and local peoples are recorded from the 830s and 840s. In Britain and Ireland, by the 1850s, mixed groups of Gaelic, Gaedeli, and foreign cultures, Gaul, were plaguing the Irish countryside. Written accounts survive from Britain and Ireland condemning or seeking to prevent people from joining the Vikings, and they show Viking warbands were not ethnically exclusive. Citation needed. So you have the citation for seeking to prevent people condemning, but you don't have any citation for Viking works were not ethnically exclusive. Okay? As with later pirate groups, for example, the early modern pirates of the Caribbean, Viking crews would frequently lose members and pick up new recruits as they travel, combining dissidents elements from different backgrounds and culture. Again, citation needed. If you're gonna make such a claim, you have to provide evidence. No, they did have they settled down and with their families in other places like Greenland, Iceland, also a few years in on the east coast of Canada and northern USA, I believe it is, but I was thinking it's mostly Canada, and from the Norwegians also who occupied Normandy were Vikings from Scandinavia. They didn't come elsewhere. So, again, you have to prove this. You're supposed to be uh, knowingly and scholarly, so it's not looking good. The cultural and ethnic diversity of the Viking age is highlighted by finds in furnished graves and silver hoards from the 9th and 10th centuries in Britain and Ireland. Only a small percentage of goods handled by Vikings are Scandinavian in origin or style. Okay, so but that doesn't prove ethnic diversity. It provides cultural diversity because they traded in the Middle East and with others. So, and they buried the kings and the rich people with the riches they got in life. So it doesn't prove ethnic diversity. The Galloway hoard, discovered in southwest Scotland in 2014, includes components from Scandinavia, Britain, Ireland, continental Europe, and Turkey. Cultural eclecticism is a feature of Viking fights. An analysis of skeleton sites linked to Vikings using the latest scientific techniques points to a mixture of Scandinavian and non-Scandinavian people without clear ethnic distinction or rank or in rank or gender. Again, citation needed. The, I mean, the the link you're using no longer no longer exists. So okay, I'm gonna that's debunked. I'm gonna use Hitchens razor. The evidence points to population mobility, acculturation over large distances as a result of Viking Age trade networks. The Viking Age was a key period in state formation processes in Northern Europe, and certainly by the 11th and 12th centuries, there were growing interest in defining national identities and developing appropriate origins myths to explain them. This led to a retrospective development in areas settled by the Vikings to celebrate their links to Scandinavia and downplay the non-Scandinavian elements. Okay. The fact that these myths, when committed to writing, were not accurate accounts is suggested by self-contradictory stories and folklore motifs. For example, medieval legends concerning the foundation of Dublin suggested either a Danish or Norwegian origin to the town. A lot of ink has been spilled over this matter over the years, and there is a story of three brothers bringing three ships, which bears comparison with other origin legends. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it isn't true. So you have to debunk this. Ironically, it was growth of nation states in Europe which would eventually herald the end of the Viking Age. Yeah, and ended in 1066. This is where I kind of stopped and started recording the ending part of this article. In the early Viking Age, modern notions of nationalism and ethnicity would have been unrecognizable. Okay. Viking culture was eclectic. Yeah, how was it eclectic? Just because they brought tools from other countries? Again, I've talked to people at museums and I've read things up. I've grown up with this stuff as well. So this is a very bad argument. This is strawman almost. But were common features across large areas, including a use of the Old Norse speech, which they still use in Iceland. Similar shipping and military technologies, domestic architecture and fashions that combine Scandinavian and non-Scandinavian inspirations. No, the skin later, especially in Norway, if you see this. A lot of the architecture came from Denmark, and Sweden also used a lot of the similar architecture. And when it comes to the churches and more modern, I mean, we have the Hanseatic in Western Norway, which inspired a lot of how the cities were built up there. And so it was German culture and architecture having a large influence there. So again, that's a lie. If they're trying to imply it's the Middle East or something, it's basically just German, which is just south of Denmark. So it can be argued that these markers of identify were more about status and affiliation to long-range trading networks than ethnic symbols. A lot of the social display and identity is non-ethnic in character. One might compare this to contemporary international business cultures, which has adopted English language. The latest computing technologies, common layouts for boardrooms, and the donning of Western suits. This is a culture expressed in nearly any country of the world, but independently of ethnic identity. Okay, that's still a weak argument. So, because there's a national suit, that doesn't mean the suit is Scandinavian, ethnic is that makes no sense at all. Similarly, Vikings in the 9th and 10th centuries may be better defined more about what they did than by their place, origin, or DNA. So now you're just moving the goalpost. What? You spent the entire article saying they interbred and mixed. I mean, there were probably some occasions where Scandinavian, Norwegian, Swedish, or Danes went to the Middle East and got children and stayed there. But now you're just dismissing it. Oh, the origin or DNA doesn't matter. By dropping the simplistic equation of Scandinavians with Viking, we may better understand what the early Viking Age was about and how Vikings reshaped the foundations of medieval Europe by adapting to different cultures rather than trying to segregate. Oh my god. So this last paragraph just undoes everything. Norwegians had a certain culture. Swedish also were very similar to the culture of Danish as well. There was a certain culture within the Vikings. There was a ethnicity within the Vikings. It was basically looked at as having blonde hair and blue eyes was basically the standard ideal or the ideal beauty ideal for the Vikings. So claiming that this crap, it just irritates me because I do this. It has relations to my job, and when I see this stuff, it just irritates me to no end. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.